Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Burly
Yar, bears. And a teat.
Teet.
That's got well deep now.
Really pushing that down. Yeah, it doesn't come out. If
Very
I,
bassy.
yeah, if I try and go too high, the microphone just goes, no, can't, can't do it. Can't handle
Test,
it. Can't handle
testing your
my
testing
falsetto.
your range.
Yeah, yeah. Just,
Bassy.
it's,
That's a bassy saggy teat, that one.
yeah, it's a low,
Ooh.
that's a low hanging droopy breast, isn't it? I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. That's not
Yeah,
a perky, pointy uppy teat.
there it is. Well, that won't have come out either.
No. People will just sort of get the t bit.
I just see you committing to it. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you again for tuning into this latest episode of Burly and a Teet. Just a couple dads talking about life and things that they love, their hobbies, the things that we obviously, use to decompress from the stresses of being an adult. And this week, we have a very, very specific plan for this week's episode, which is that my dear friend Burly is going to become the auteur, the director, the creative messiah for a series of video game franchises. He is going to be the one to determine what should be done with the future of these series. And now, Burley, can you just confirm from everyone watching, do not know which franchises I'm about to ask you about?
No, it's not gonna, I don't know, but I know you know
Yes.
me and what I like and what I've ramped on about in the past in terms
Yes.
of my favorite franchises.
And I've picked ones that I think you will have quite interesting takes on.
Yeah, and I reckon I know one of them easily.
Okay. Okay.
I
Can you
thought as
tell
soon as you
me
said it, I went, he's going to ask me about this one. I know it.
Okay. Can you tell me it when well, I will say it inevitably because we know each other so
Shall I
well.
write it down?
I tell you what, put three. We didn't plan this, by the way. This is so us.
No.
This is completely how we do this. Put down three franchises you think I'm going to ask you about.
Yeah, I'm going to do it now. Look, I'm
Okay.
literally going to do it now. All right. That one's definitely going on there.
This is great. Great content, by the way. We just get to
This
see
is
the top of
amazing.
your head.
Here I am writing something.
Yeah, totally. This is what people tune in
I'm,
for.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna,
For any of the audio listeners, Burley right now is making notes about which
I'm,
franchises he
I'm
thinks I'm about to
writing.
ask.
Yeah, this makes great audio. And then a third one. And, oh wait, yeah, I know this one. I know this
Okay.
one.
Okay.
I had to glance at my shelf to think, what's he gonna write? Definitely that. Definitely that. Right. Okay. I've written three
Excellent.
things down now.
Okay, that
Amazing.
would be
Right. Resume.
yeah, it'd be very interesting to see if we're in the same headspace right now. So
Right.
here is the process and how it works. Essentially, Burley's going to have four choices to make with each of these franchises. A sequel, so it could be that the series continuity just continues. What would he want to see from a new game in the series? A follow-up. I suppose you could say prequel as well, but it's basically another game in the series. So just continuing the story or going back and doing a prequel. Um, DLC is option number two. So if, for example, it's a game like Rocket League, where maybe you wouldn't necessarily need a Rocket League 2, Burley then chooses DLC as his option. What would he like to see how the game expands? Then there's Reboot, a series that maybe's fallen on tough times and we need to get a completely new take on it, or just put it in the bin. Taking this franchise and going, you know what, it's had its day. We need to now put this away, to put it to bed, and we don't ever see it again. So it's sequel, DLC, reboot, or the bin. Basically, that's his four choices. So, Burley, I'm going to come at you straight away. We're going to come in hot with this one. It's a
Go
little
for it.
franchise called Mass Effect.
Just for the ladies and gentlemen who are not on audio.
Number
Number one, Mass Effect.
Number one on the
Do
list.
you know, as soon as you said it, I went Mass Effect. Clearly, he's going to ask me about
Now,
Mass Effect.
without spoiling it just yet, but at least one of those other ones you put down, I was definitely going to ask you about.
Oh, did you see?
Definitely, because I saw the.
I
I saw
gave
the
it
bottom of
away,
the-
didn't I?
Yeah, yeah. Spoiler. Which, by the way, that's so us as well to have come up with this in the moment and then spoil the entire
And
process.
spoil the rest of it. Oh well, can't spoil what you already know.
So we start with the choice first. So rather, before we get into the discussion, start with the decision. Do we want to see a direct sequel? Now, in this case, would be a sequel to Andromeda, because that was the last game that
Oh
came
no,
out.
we're not. No, not
Right.
Andromeda.
Because
No.
we know we're getting a sequel. We know we're getting something. We know it, but we know it's most likely going to be, you know, referencing the old continuity. So do you want that straight up sequel or a prequel? You know, where do you want to go in the timeline? Do we just get some DLC for a previous game, reboot it entirely, like do what they did with Andromeda, just completely redo the series, do something fresh, or does Mass Effect need to go in the bin?
It definitely doesn't need to go in the bin.
Okay.
That's for no, 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 no. That's still got legs on it, I
Mm,
think, but in the right way. Like Andromeda was a little bit of a wet blanket, I
mm.
think, when they released that one. The trouble was is that the original trilogy was so good, you
Yeah.
can't really. It's like Star Wars, right? The original trilogy is like boom, and then you can make trilogies around it, but I think you've got to keep the original as it is,
Hmm.
not play with it. They've already done like HD
Yeah.
rehash of it, haven't they? Which is amazing.
Great.
So I
Really
would
well
go
done.
down the route of, oh, this is it. I'm tempted to go prequel to it.
Right. Okay. So we go back before Mass Effect 1.
Yeah, because there's a lot of history that they could cover there, and they could cover the first Contact War, I think, with the
Right. So we go
Turians.
almost a bit like with Star Wars and the High Republic era. We go right
Mm,
back to
yeah,
something else.
but better.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm
That's
thinking you could do like a prequel, and it doesn't have to be like a trilogy of games. It could be it's a standalone,
mm,
right? And then maybe another standalone. It doesn't have to be a series, I don't think, where you can bring some of the same characters in or out of it. But I would go like prequel, sort of maybe either. I'm thinking First Contact Wars when the human race first discovers the relay, and then they
relays. Yeah.
accidentally discover the Turians and they think they're enemies and they have a little fight and then that's it, right? And yeah, I reckon you could make a good sort of game about that.
That's really interesting because we know we're getting a sequel and we know that it's not uh, a follow-up to Andromeda. It's going to reference the older, trilogy, but we don't know where it takes place in the timeline. So there is potential there that there could be elements of, say, your idea of it being a prequel, or we might get some flashbacks within the narrative, but we don't know where it's going to be set and how it's going to work, or will it even, in fact, reference your save file from the first three games? Because I loved that about the original trilogy.
Oh
You
yeah,
carry your choices. I know that games have done that before, but there hadn't been a game for me that had done it in such a meaningful way, where your decisions actually did affect the character, certain characters lived or died
yeah.
in the sequel
So
based on
characters
your
were written
choices.
out,
And that was
would be written
so,
out with some options, wouldn't they? In
yeah.
late,
And
so they
obviously
wouldn't
that
be in it.
there is the other side of that where you kind of go, okay, well, you're either missing out on interesting story content and how much effort do they put in all of those different strands because not everyone's going to see it. But I think it gave it that sort of role-playing immersion. It made you feel like your decisions mattered
It also
in
made
that
you
game.
play it more than once so that you would try
See
and
the
whenever
different,
I did it and I went, oh, that character died. I'm like,
yeah,
damn. And I played it again and made sure that character stayed alive. In fact, I played it with a perfect playthrough where so none of the
nice.
players that with the optional deaths, only the deaths that you couldn't avoid happened.
Mm.
All the optional ones happened when they were meant to happen, if that makes sense. So yeah, I made sure I played through it because I liked all the characters.
Yeah, nice.
For the
That's
first time
good.
I did it, I didn't realize, and they were all dying left, right, and center.
Yeah, my Mass Effect 2, which is the best final mission I think I've ever played in a game, the suicide mission. You go into the collector's base,
Yeah.
and I role played the decision. So I sent the people to do the things that I thought made sense for them, and I lost like half my crew. Like half of them got wiped out. You know, but
That's
but it
painful. That
but
is
yeah, because
painful.
I lost two characters that I know in the third game had like a quite a substantial role. So I lost Mordin in the
Oh,
in the second game,
yeah,
and I
insane.
lost Thane, the assassin,
Oh
and
no,
I was
yeah.
gutted. Like he was he got carried off by a swarm of the collectors, and yeah, I was heartbroken. But that just showed you, doesn't it, the investment in that narrative and those characters, that your decisions really did carry weight and they mattered. So
But
yeah.
also, I think if they did do another one, they can't do exactly the same thing. So I think
Mm,
I wouldn't mind if they closed the narrative down a little bit and made a really good game that was, like you say, a standalone game
mm.
that is, you know, set in the universe. It doesn't have to be this big thing necessarily.
See,
Or they make
I agree
lots
with
of
that.
little games to it.
Yeah,
So I'm not saying, because sometimes if you try to mimic it, it doesn't work.
goes
Because they
too
did
big, too bloated.
with Andromeda, they tried to do the same thing, and
Mm.
why didn't it work? What was the difference about it? Is it the characters not as strong? I don't know.
So for me,
It was the characters.
yeah, you've addressed that with me, which is that I think the characters weren't as strong, they weren't as well defined, and I think the narrative where it became sort of so high stakes, it was almost like they had to try and one up the original trilogy, and they needed to scale back. I think make it smaller, make it more personal, and that's
Yeah,
then an interesting way to continue that series forward.
yeah. Sometimes the formula, if it like some formulas work cut and paste, but sometimes you keep elements of it, but
Mm.
you can't always get the recipe exactly right, I suppose. And I could go in and think going in thinking what's best, and it end up being maybe not as good. But yeah, I would go prequel. I think there's a lot of stuff there. Sequel could be a bit dangerous because then you don't have, yeah, because well, you could use the same characters, but I think you've got to respect the characters and
Mm.
let them just finish it the way it was finished and go, well, I'm drawn. That's their
Yeah,
art.
I'd
Let's try not to
I'd
touch on
want.
that now.
I think if it was ever going to be a sequel, a true sequel, I'd want it to be like sort of a 10 years later from the ending of 3, and let us rediscover these characters again. Where did they end up? What happened after the
But
final
blend them
decision?
in, don't make them part of the main story.
Have
Just
them
come
be
into cameos.
absolutely. I
But then
think that's interesting.
you can have some of those cameos in the prequels though, like younger versions of themselves, maybe.
Now, just
Sometimes you could
the
say
second you said that, I just thought young Garrus. Give it to me.
young Gareth.
Give me a lean, mean young Garrus that you like. You come across him, and he's like an antagonist in the beginning. Like
No,
that would be
yeah, well, that's
fantastic.
potentially one there, like a young Gareth, but also the what's his name now? The Admiral in it.
Oh,
It's going to annoy me now, but you
yeah,
could have like a young that the Admiral in there. That would be good. Uh,
exactly what you're talking about as well.
it's going to wind me up now.
Hmm.
It's absolutely gonna. Do I just flesh this out for
It's
a second now?
yeah, because he's
Well,
played by Keith David.
I'm
I know the
just,
actor's name. He's played by Keith David. He
I'm
is
totally not
Admiral.
googling it.
Put Keith David Mass Effect in there.
Is
And
that what it is?
Keith David's definitely the actor. Oh, that's we're gonna be so angry.
It's gonna wind me up. It
Mm.
definitely.
Pumpkin, do you know? No, you're not bothered. Never mind. Golden content, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Oh, for God's sake, it's just giving me all
Admiral.
these other things now, which is really not.
Right.
Oh, Anderson.
How did we not know that? We're bad Mass
That
Effect
was
fans.
really bad.
That's not
I feel
okay.
like I've let the franchise down.
Yeah, I know.
Because these,
Well,
because
don't
I
sell yourself
genuinely
short because
love that cat.
I
The
think your
character's
prequel ideas
amazing.
I think your prequel ideas got strength there. I think there's some room to
You could even
expand on
have
that.
like so some of the aliens and things have like long lives, don't they? So you
Mhm.
could have like Rex make a cameo in there. Do you know what I mean? As like a slightly younger version of himself fighting for someone else. I don't know, like yeah, you
Well,
know,
it's interesting that you mentioned prequel because Gears of War, I don't know if you saw what they're doing with that
E-Day,
franchise.
E-Day,
E-Day.
yeah.
Because everyone thought it was going to be Gears 6, and everyone thought that it could maybe be like a remake of Gears of War 1, like the first game. But actually, they're going back 10 years before E-Day, before the first game and going to E-Day, which I think is a great unexplored bit of territory. And they're leaning more horror with it. They're doing kind of smaller scale, more kind of survival horror style Gears game. And that's a great way to reinvigorate that franchise, I think. So it kind of speaks in some ways, it's kind of similar to the pitch you've made there for Mass Effect. And, going back to
Yeah.
basics, going back to
You're
do a
you're
prequel.
like maybe you're like a young soldier or something,
Mm,
completely different character. That maybe comes into it. I don't know, like one of the other characters who were in the original trilogy. I don't know.
hmm
Um, yeah, or even like you play as Anderson, maybe. I don't know.
Oh,
Uh,
that's tickled me.
yeah, and yeah, and not and keep it like a bit smaller, but
Hmm.
then maybe you could just make little pockets of free standalone games in that period of different characters
I tell you what, even just an
that almost
episodic,
sets up the original
yeah, even just the
trilogy,
idea of an episodic
and it
Mass
kind of
Effect
feeds
trilogy.
into it. Yeah, like
Yeah,
early days, weave in like what they did with like episodes 1, 2, and 3 on Star Wars
Hmm.
almost. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be good. And then you're not really going to ruin, you're keeping the homage to the original. You're not going to upset the original fans. And you could probably, they'll want to play it. And then you could probably bring some other people in, like not having played the original. They can play
Mm.
those on their own and be perfectly good games, you know? So, yeah, I feel like, yeah, it's possible. Like, as long as I don't Disney it, right? Then, and ruin it, you know.
Please don't overdo it. But
Oh,
yeah,
don't want to get cancelled, do we? We talk about that. You might get sued by Disney.
please. They know who we are. We're above it. So franchise number two that I want to pitch you, and you've got full control. You've got the keys to the kingdom here, Burley. All the
Yeah.
money, the budget is stratospheric. You can do whatever you want. Sequel, DLC, reboot, or put it in the bin. Franchise number two is a little game called Halo. Sequel, DLC for Infinite, reboot it, or put it in the bin.
I haven't really played Halo since Halo 4.
Mm-hmm.
And Halos 1, 2, and 3 for a long time were my favorite
Did you play
games.
ODST and Reach?
Yes and yes.
Cool. Okay.
So I played, yeah, so I played 1, 2, 3, 4, ODST,
So you
Blinder,
that means okay, so you played all the Bungie games then, which is
all
one, two,
the
three,
yeah,
ODST, Reach.
all the peak games,
Yeah,
right?
and then four was your last one.
4 was the last one that I ever played
Okay.
on 360. So,
Because where we're
oh,
at right now, Halo Infinite is the current game in the series. The multiplayer is free to play. There isn't anything sort of announced in terms of like a campaign DLC or anything like
I
that. So
thought
do
there
we
was going to be because you saw trailers was basically a
well,
campaign trailer.
yeah, it was yeah. Um there's there was always supposed to be this sort of 10-year plan that Halo Infinite was going to be like a platform for future, like all the Halo stuff that would be released would go through that game for the next 10 years. And that hasn't really panned out because it launched poorly. It didn't have all of its features. It didn't have online co-op, which is just I can't.
Basics. That's what
Yeah.
makes Halo Halo.
It didn't have Forge either. It didn't have like where you can make your own maps. It didn't have
Yeah.
that feature, which is a big part of there's a big community around that. Didn't launch with it. They then cancelled the campaign split screen. So they said it was going to be in it. It wasn't in it. They then made it online co-op like a year later, but cancelled split screen, which is what Halo is in its DNA. It's a split screen game. They kept the multiplayer split
Oh,
screen.
so whatever I do is not going to be any worse than that, then, is it?
No, this is a pretty low bar we've set for this one. So do we sort of prequel sequel it, DLC for Halo Infinite, reboot the thing, or just stick it in the bin?
I mean, can not to sound too repetitive again, but I think a prequel would work.
Sure. Okay.
I think like, but but again, following the sort of style of ODST,
Mm,
doing it with
Marines.
Sergeant Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Because he played a big role. You could do Harvest or something when they first
Mhm.
meet the Covenant. I think you can do that because obviously they're doing the sequel. That's
Mhm.
obviously fallen apart. That's already like hot garbage, right? At the minute, that's probably divided fans quite heavily. The
Yeah,
fact
it
that
didn't. It's
they've
the live
bought
service element of it. It hasn't been well supported. Like there was 6 months between the launch of the game and the actual first season of the content that got added
and
to this.
you know what I think
Good.
that's driving that's ruined it. And this is the same with a lot of things. Is that the people with who are bankrolling things are more interested about how can they maximize money rather
Mm,
than creating a good game. If they'd created a good standalone game, it would have made money,
hmm.
right? But they're thinking, oh, how can we break it and do it in bits so that we can draw out more money and make and it, but it ruins it, right?
Well, yeah, and I think it also set up the Xbox Series X to come out of the gate weak because it should have been a launch title for that console and it wasn't. I think personally, if the campaign wasn't ready, they should have just launched the multiplayer separately, which is already free to play because they'd separated that, right? Like that multiplayer for that game is free to play. So have a Halo Infinite multiplayer at launch, free to play. That thing, the console would have done better at the gate. I have no doubt about that. They
Yeah,
completely
it
screwed
was
up the
just
launch of the console and the game.
they've muddled it. But
Yeah.
then I'm not. I haven't been on with the Xbox thing for a while, right? So, but I'm trying to think original because
Yes.
I Halo takes me back to being a kid and
Mm.
to my teenage years and early adulthood. So love that franchise to bits.
Yeah.
Got a massive place for it. So and they've done again. They've rebooted it, I suppose, haven't they, in a way with
Yeah.
um, the originals and everything. So they've done that. That did well. I would quite like to play that. If I was to get an Xbox, I would just Halo would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be happy with an Xbox and Halo. Just that's on its own. So again, a prequel I think would work really well. Just again, a nice standalone game. You're playing as one at like Johnson or one of the other early days
Mm.
Spartans or something. I don't know. Or like I say, or you're just playing as Marines. It's a totally different. You don't feel as indestructible. It's
Mm.
a game style slightly different. It's tougher. Like to it's dead. You haven't got all this health and armor and shields and things, which makes you feel a bit sort of invulnerable. Uh, yeah. So something that's just a bit more tactical, perhaps.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd quite like. I think if we were going to go down that route, I'd want to continue the series moving forward. I'd want to go sequel, but I'd want to be a squad of Marines that are sort of like they've been cut off from the rest of the UNSC, and you have to survive. It's you and three other players, and you have to survive in like a sandbox, small sandbox open world, and you've got to work your way through it and survive. And I think that could be really interesting as an approach to them making it maybe a bit more challenging, a bit more survival esque.
Yeah, like vibe, just changing the stuff, man. Maybe something a little bit experimental.
Mm.
They did Halo Wars, didn't they? The
Yeah,
strategy,
and actually,
which does which
you
did quite
mentioned that.
well, didn't
Yeah,
they?
and it is good. Both
I
Halo
played the
Wars games are
first
great.
one and it was good. Never
Yeah.
played the second,
So
and that was
I,
fun.
I wouldn't mind having, you remember the original Helldivers, it was like a top-down game. They did do
Yeah,
that with Halo. They had Halo Spartan Assault. They did a top-down Halo shooter. And I think mix up the genre. I think that is a great way of revitalizing that franchise. Do something a bit left field, get a game out sooner. So we're not waiting now 5 years for another Halo game. Get something smaller scale out quicker to get people interested again in that series.
yeah, just yeah, and it would probably get a different audience.
Hmm.
You get the hard, yeah, and it just gives you something a little bit different without trying to again copy and paste what they've already done.
Right.
I mean, they could still make another FPS Spartan
Mhm.
shooter, and it potentially still be very good. But yeah, the fact that they've sort of muddled this infinite thing up means I don't think it's just gonna ever have the same.
No, that
It's,
brand does not have the same pull that it once
it,
had, and
it,
I think
you,
there's been one too many, like Halo 5 Guardians, which is the multiplayer. They added a lot of stuff like with the vaulting and dashing and ground pounding, and there was a lot of. It didn't feel like Halo multiplayer. It felt like too much of a swing the other way. It felt almost like a Black Ops game. It kind of went like the other way,
oh yeah, see
and
the
it
thing is, it's
didn't
an
didn't work.
arcade arena
Simple,
shooter,
grounded arcade shooter. Yeah, that's
just nothing special.
yeah.
Well, it is. Do you know that's the special recipes? It is at its
Simple.
elements quite simple,
Yep.
but that's what one, two, like Halo 1, 2, 3. Just you'll never be able to beat them. So you just got to kind of like play play second place.
Hmm.
But just do it again. Don't try, but without going, oh, if I was to make any game, right, I wouldn't be thinking about how much money I'm going to make. I would just be I'm going in this with I'm going to make a good game.
Hmm.
I've just, some of the best games at the minute that like people compare it when a DLC comes out. The DLC is better than most actual games on some things, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying? Is it I never played Elden Ring, but apparently they've just had a DLC, and they're like
Yeah.
DLC is better than 99% of games, which are
Yeah.
free when they did all their DLCs. The DLCs were epic. They were better than any actual like standalone games, and it's a DLC. It's just a bit of, a 10, 15 pound DLC, and it's better than a £70
Full release.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
full like which is supposedly another AAA game, like I don't know, like Call of Duty or whatever. Just make a good game. That's
Keep it
just
simple. I like
don't worry
that.
about the microtransactions, and we'll release it in 3 parts, and then we can charge get 350 quid for it over, you know, no, just make a good game that you can sell for 60 quid and it's good. And it will, and then you can release a DLC or
Well,
put
look, I
some
mean,
small transactions in it, right?
yeah, look
You
at
might go, right, yeah, we'll put a few things in there, but nothing mental,
yeah. Well, look
nothing
at
pay to
Helldivers.
play.
Look at
Just
Helldivers. Helldivers was the best approach, I think, because they made it 35 quid. They knew exactly what game they were making, and it's found a huge audience because of that. And that's
yeah.
a great way to approach that. They just made a great game first, and they priced it appropriately and for what it is. And yeah, that's the model.
It's not going to have made money, is it? It's going to
No,
have done
exactly.
very well. But the trouble is that and this is not to get off track too much, right? But it's the big studios eating up all the small studios,
Hmm.
and all they give a F about is shareholders.
Hmm.
What do the shareholders have probably never picked up a game in their life. They don't care.
Yeah.
It's appeasing shareholders. This is the thing with all the big companies. It's to share. You're trying to appease all the people that couldn't give a damn about the product,
We've
and that's what
we
they're giving us all the time. Here's the
yeah,
product.
we've
Oh, it's rubbish. Well, we own everything, so it's either this load of
Well,
rubbish
yeah,
or this
we've
load of
seen this,
rubbish.
haven't we, with the Embracer Group buying up a bunch of indie studios and smaller teams, and then they've now closed some enormous developers. Like they nearly got rid of the World War Z developer Saber Interactive. They managed to thankfully divest and become their own team, which was great. But they've shut Free Radical, who are working on the Time Splitters sequel.
Yeah,
Um,
this is what winds me
they
up
shut
about
Volition,
this.
who are working on Red Faction, and you know,
It's the same with like Star Wars is my biggest one at the minute. Is that this Acolyte series they've just released? I watched the first few episodes and went, no, not watching it. So bad, ruined it, ruining it. It doesn't exist now in my mind. I have to try to erase it
that's that's
by
how I feel. That's
from
how I
my
feel about
eyes. I'm like, oh, I've watched it, and it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. That was just a sort of a lucid dream
a
that I
fever
had
dream. Yeah, that's how I feel about
LSD. I had too much. I had some drugs that weren't good for me, and I watched this, and that's what happened. It doesn't exist. Keeps pop like I've unfollowed everything on social media that has anything to do with it because I'm just trying to run away from it because it's absolute
yeah,
hot
that's how I
garbage.
feel about episode 8 and episode 9. I just
Oh yeah, 7, 8, and 9. Yeah, I'm still waiting for those to come out. What are you on about? They
they
never,
didn't exist. Yeah,
they never
exactly.
released.
So this third franchise I want to now pitch you is a bit of a left field one
All
because
right.
it's not something that we both played it, but you and I don't have a huge like current investment in it.
Oh, okay.
But this is why I want to pick your brain on it. It's
Okay.
precisely why. It's a little Nintendo franchise called Mario Kart. What would Adam J. Burley do with the Mario Kart franchise? A sequel, more DLC for the current Mario Kart 8, which came out on the Wii U 6, 7 years ago and still being supported right
Is
now.
it still because I've got the Mario Kart 8
A
on
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch, right?
Deluxe, yes.
That is the Wii U game with all of its original Wii U DLC released. They've since released 48 new tracks on the Switch version, the deluxe version, since it came out. So do we do a sequel, more DLC, reboot Mario Kart, something completely fresh, or does Mario Kart need to go in the bin?
Oh, again, it's a classic, isn't it? Because
Mm.
I
But
played
what do you
Mario
do with
Kart.
that franchise?
Well, I went to that video game exposition they got at the Science Museum a while back, and they had all of the retro consoles, and I played the Mario Kart original on the Nintendo. Like,
That's the SNES.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it's sort of the concept has stayed the same, really. It's just got more colourful and mad, really. Drew loves that game.
Mhm.
I've played it with her to death. It's great. It's classic. All millennials know it. I've probably played it once, at least once. So again, it's quite a difficult one to do. I don't think it should be binned though.
No, it's too.
It needs to keep going.
Yeah.
So the fact that I thought 8 came out way more recently than
No,
it did. When did it come out?
8 was on the Wii U. It would have come out in like 20. Quick fact check on that.
Oh, in fact,
I'm
check
pretty
it.
sure it came out in like 2013, 2014.
Oh, so Mario Kart 8's been out for like a decade.
Because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was the Switch version, right? I was right, 2014.
Okay, so there's 9. So on that basis, we should be on 11 or 12 by now.
right? But then they've just kept updating it. Nintendo have just kept adding DLC
Yeah, which
tracks and
so what
expanding it.
would you do with Mario Kart 9? Like, where
Mm.
did you go with it?
You've got the
Like,
keys.
do you, oh wow. I'd have to just be experimental at this point and just go, and if it fails, it fails, right?
Mm.
But I would make a sequel in
Okay.
this instance. I think DLCs is done. You can't really make a prequel. It will just be the same game because the concept is always the same. I wouldn't, no way would you bin it because you've just capped it now, haven't you?
Hmm.
So I would probably have to go sequel, but then you'd have to do something very different with it.
So
Now,
okay,
maybe
so
not Mario Kart.
okay, go
So
on.
maybe it will be some sort of
Mario Barge.
Mario Blimps.
Yeah.
No, it'd be like Mario. It'll be
Push.
like Mario Fly. It would have to be something flying, I reckon.
Okay.
Like racing through like hoops and
Like
do you know what I mean?
canyons and like yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Like it
Okay.
would have to be some sort of flying version, I
Okay.
think. So instead of Mario Kart,
So we're kind of going a little bit Diddy Kong
just like
Racing from the N64 then. We're
yeah.
going a little bit that way.
So maybe it's a sort of reboot, I suppose. Could it be the
Huh?
same game if it's not in a car?
I suppose, yeah,
You
you
know
could.
when you're flying, you do the jumps and you got the glider and you're
Yes,
flying,
but you saying
right?
the whole game is you're
But
flying.
almost more of the flying, maybe.
Okay.
I think that would be good.
Okay.
You start at the top and maybe you know some of it's a bit of gliding, helicopters and planes. You can almost do like a glide to the bottom and get through all the hoops, almost like a
Mm.
like snowboarding games. Do you know what I mean? That sort of thing.
Mm. Okay.
Well, I would probably do something like that because then it's the same but different.
Mm.
And then you'd have some, yeah, that's what I would do. Yeah.
Okay. Now, see,
So
this is very, I
Mario,
think you and I are on the same track in terms of it would be more of a reboot than just a straight sequel.
maybe, yeah.
Something
So, yeah. So I
very
think, yeah. So it would be a reboot, really, wouldn't it?
reboot.
But not a
Okay.
reboot as such. It would just be something that goes alongside it. Like it will be the first version of whatever this is
Yes. Yeah.
alongside of as a standalone. Yeah. What would you call? I'm trying to think of a name now. Mario Fly?
Mm. Mario Kart Fly or something like that.
Mario Kart. Yeah, well, yeah, you can't have kart because it's not a car, it's not a go-kart.
Unless it's sort of we do it as sort of like their go-karts, they've modified them so heavily that now they're like little flying machines.
Yeah, I
But it
mean it
still
just gets more and
preserves
more
the because you've got to
ridiculous.
think of the branding too.
Yeah,
Like Mario Kart's so well known, you've got to keep that in there.
Mario Kart Superfly.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You know, something like that
That's
where,
it.
you know, literally that you could almost introduce it with someone driving up and then he pushes a button and then it just goes like a transformer.
Transformer, and then yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Wings come out and then it goes off a ramp and just
And
flies.
that's your trailer.
Yeah.
The trailer starts off, it's just it looks like it's Mario Kart. And then suddenly Mario just hits the button and it
He's like, oh, what's
drives
this?
off the edge. Yeah, yeah.
Pushes
Yeah.
it and it almost turns into a transformer type thing.
Hmm.
Transforms into something completely different and just flies off, does like a barrel roll,
Yeah.
then
Do a
like
barrel roll.
loop the loop through something, and
Yeah.
then
Through
yeah,
like a canyon like this, it kind of goes through like that and he kind of loops through it. Like there,
yeah,
that's the one.
as he goes to attack like Bowser and a big bomber dropping shells.
Totally.
It works. I think that would
No, that's
work.
good. I think no, it's a reboot. That's not a sequel. That's a reboot. You are
That's a reboot.
fundamentally changing the nature of that game there.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
so my pitch to you was going to be that I really like what you just come up with. Mario Kart Superfly, Nintendo, if you're listening, verbal copyright. Okay,
yeah,
we've got
yeah.
that locked
That would be
down.
awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I had an idea of taking a bit of the inspiration from what they did with Super Mario Maker, where they had a game where you were making 2D Mario levels and have a shared world online, it's online only, shared world Mario Kart game where every track in the city is created by players. And the thing just keeps expanding over time, becoming more elaborate with different tracks and courses and everything all linked together in this one big open world. And it's all player created. It's a player generated
You
world.
can just imagine players creating things that are got traps in and stuff, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? That just goes into a hole, and you're like, ah,
Yep.
that went nowhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite an
And
interesting.
taking what you have to do, because with Mario Maker, in order for the level to be allowed to be published, you have to have done it yourself. So you have to basically prove to the game that it's completable. So you would design all these tracks, race it once to show that there is a start and an end point, but all of them interconnect in this giant city. And you can then drive up to a junction, trigger a race, a bit like Burnout Paradise. You drive up, you trigger the race, and then it's a user-generated track that you're racing on. Everything is created by players.
That's quite cool.
Yeah. And then there's the DLC expansion, Mario Kart Superfly, where you get in you have the Transformers and it's all flying, and it's
I love it. Mario Kart Superfly.
Mario Kart Superfly, an online shared world Mario Kart.
I love, I'm actually quite content with my Superfly idea. I think that's good.
There's something there.
Yeah, there is. I think, I'm just still surprised that Mario Kart 8 has been out for like 10 years. Like I say, on that basis, that we should be on about 14 or like Mario Kart 12 or 13, really.
Yeah. And then the one prior, so Mario Kart 7 was on the 3DS, and that was the first game that introduced you go over a jump and a glider pops out. That was the first game that introduced that mechanic. And the driving underwater, that was the game that introduced those mechanics.
Yeah, I like all that. Yeah,
it was Mario Kart 8 that did the anti-grav stuff. When you like hit those barriers and you spin.
Yeah,
the wheels
tires roll up. Yeah,
yes,
like
that was Mario Kart. So 7 introduced the glider in the water. 8 introduced the anti-grav stuff, and then obviously Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the Wii U game, but with a bunch of DLC plus the new tracks that they've added since then. There's 48 tracks they added across, I think 7 or 8 different DLC packs, which is nuts. Just crazy.
Which goes to show you definitely need a reboot then.
Yeah, something fresh, something really new.
They must really be struggling with that.
Make it for the next one. Make it for the next Switch. So whatever the next console is, you do it as like a big title for that game, for that console.
Maybe they are. Maybe that's what they are doing.
Yeah, could be what's cooking. Could be what's
They're
cooking.
less concerned. They're less concerned about churning out rubbish for the sake of it, aren't they?
No, they don't need to. They've got so much IP, and they're so good at like supporting them. There's always new stuff coming out. So
that's what I mean. It's not like we've got to release one every year.
No.
Like EA or whatever, where they're like, we've got to release every version of the same game every 12 months.
Please, we have to,
Yeah, for the shareholders. So shareholders need it.
There's 5 games that I'm pitching you. We've had Mass Effect, Halo, Mario Kart as our titles so far. There's 2 more to go.
Right.
This one's a bit bittersweet, and it was on your list. A little series called Titanfall.
Well, obviously, it's going to be a sequel, isn't it, to that?
Give us Titanfall 3, right?
Yeah. Like, that's just obvious. It's like a great... Why isn't there a third one?
It's the best...
Again, doesn't it? The second one was so simple.
Right. Can I just make some proclamations then? Best shooter campaign of the last generation of consoles, no question for me. It was the best single player campaign I played in as an FPS, and I think it has one of the most original and interesting multiplayers. We've got the pilot gameplay and the Titan gameplay since Halo.
Yeah. It's just nothing comes close to it. It's just a small little game. The campaign was what, 6 hours
maximum
gameplay, but it was just the best 6. It was just amazing.
Mechanically so fun to play. Great story. Actually, I thought the story was really well done.
Story was good.
Yeah.
Story was good.
Really well done.
And the multiplayer is just fun. Again, arcade, shooter, simple perks and stuff. You know what I mean? It's not crazy.
But it got the feel right. And that's something that's such a nebulous thing. It's so difficult to get right in games where a game just feels right to play. Like I always found in Titanfall 2 that if I wanted to go to a place, I knew that I would be able to get there easily with the vaulting, the wall running, the grapple, all of the maneuverability of your character. It was so smooth and so slick, and that's why I think it deserves. You got to have a third game. Where's that Titanfall 3?
Just to cap off the trilogy, right? Just so it's a nice little trilogy, and then just what happens, but you've not finished yet, as far as I'm concerned. What you keep seeing the occasional trolling third game come in type thing, like there's these little rumors and little inklings that they're going to do it, but where is it? Come on, they've been practicing on Apex. I mean, Apex has got it right as well. So you drop Apex and get on with Titanfall 3 and make that the new thing, right? That, yeah, 100% Titanfall 3 needs to happen.
Okay. See, now you mentioned Apex there. I want to give a little shout out to Apex because I have recently picked it back up again, having
Oh, have
had
you?
almost like at least 5 or 6 seasons away from it. And I'm loving it. I've been streaming it on Burly Birds. Follow us now, Burly Bird Media, on Twitch. But I've really been enjoying it. And there are so many heroes now and so many things they've changed. It's very, very different mechanically. There's a lot of differences, things they've added. But it's a really great, well-supported game, and it still feels good to play. So
Yeah, I haven't played
yeah,
that for about 3 years.
yeah, I hadn't either. Not since we
But
played it together.
yeah, and I really did enjoy playing
Yeah,
Apex. And in fact, there was a period where we were actually good at it as
yep.
well, dare I
We're
say.
actually doing well. Yeah,
So we actually had, I think at one point, I like in one season, I think we had 21
we did.
victories in the season,
We did.
which was tough because it's it's hard. It's a lot harder to
Certainly
win
not been getting,
around.
certainly not been getting 21 victories this season. It's been really
No,
difficult. But
it's
I've
a
been doing
lot
it
harder.
solo. I've been doing solo runs
Ah,
because I didn't want to. I find sometimes playing with randos quite frustrating in that
nice.
game. So I
Yeah,
often just do solo drops at the moment.
yeah. So I, yeah, you can't really get the same level of when we were playing duos. Yeah, we did quite well.
Mm,
That we got way more wins than we would do in like Warzone. Where
for
Warzone, we
sure.
can get wins. You can. No, to be fair, actually, we got
We didn't
two
do too
weeks in a
badly on
row.
Friday night,
We
did we?
got
We
we
had
got
all
one
right.
on
We had a good
Friday, and we
time.
got one the previous Friday as well.
Yeah.
So, and that was only when you think about it. That was maybe 20% ratio. Actually,
Mm.
that's pretty good. Um, but Apex was yeah, we did quite well. But if I was to get back into that now, I think I'd just get annihilated because there's probably
So
been people playing that consistently for 4 or 5 years now.
I spent my first 2 sessions on it, and I very nearly then hard Brexit because I was getting destroyed, like routinely, like just shat on
Because
the
it's
whole
one of those
time.
ones where you don't even see where it's come from. You're like
Yeah, I just
dead.
and I
You're
was
like, oh,
dead.
I'm dead. I'm out.
Yeah,
Right. It's
so many
unforgiving.
of that, and obviously I don't know like the new characters, so I picked a random one that I didn't know about. Got to try and get used to the moves and stuff, but there's so much that they've done to streamline aspects of the game and make you have to make okay, so I'll give you just one example of how they've really iterated on this. Your armor levels up. You don't pick up different colored armors to give you more health anymore. Your armor levels up based on the damage that you've done to other players.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
encouraging you to get into combat. You get into combat and you get more Evo. Evo's the resource, and that levels up your armor amount on the bottom. But
Yeah.
every time you level up, you get to choose like a almost like a perk to upgrade some of your abilities, but you have to make decisions. So in the game, you have to go, you're gonna enhance this ability or this ability. And then you get to the next level and you do the same thing. So
Oh, so
they've
it's not just about running around looting anymore.
no no they've
Getting
built in like you have
a
to
god
make
loadout, and then
yeah. You have to
yeah,
make like decisions as you level up within each round. And then that resets every time you do a drop.
quite like that. Because sometimes,
Cool.
they say it pushes people into fighting
Yep.
or hit and run, right, or whatever,
Yeah.
rather than
You make and then
running
you can
around getting the
find
best
like
loadout, and then
yeah, you can find like little like blocks of these Evo resources. They're in like loot boxes, so you can level up your armor quicker. So you're encouraged to both explore and get into combat as well, which is fundamentally what Apex is. It's really nice. They've done some cool stuff with that, and they've obviously got some new maps in there, lots of traversal stuff going on. Like they've kept the zip lines and all that kind of thing, and it's yeah, it's
well,
good.
maybe I might do that. But at the minute, I don't
Your
know.
plate's full with Helldivers, baby.
Helldivers pretty much takes it all at the
Mm.
minute. Pretty much takes it all.
Now my final franchise I've picked very deliberately because it's completely dead in the water right now. There is nothing going on with this series. It is a little series called Red Faction.
Oh yeah.
I know, and it makes me full body exhale where I'm like, why is this not the biggest franchise on the planet? It's such a great game, great technology, the Geomod, the destruction, so good. What do we do with that series? Are we sequel, DLC for a previous game? I think we can rule that one out because the series has been dead for so long.
Yeah.
Reboot it, or does it need to just be retired?
I think it needs a reboot.
Full reboot.
A full reboot. Go back to Mass Effect. Go back to Red
Turn
Faction
Red
1.
Faction into a Mass Effect game.
Yeah. So go back to it and just do it again from the ground up, rebuild it, make it to today's standard and do one, two,
Do
three.
we call it just Red Faction?
Yeah. Don't go with all the names, just Red Faction. And then
First person or third person?
first
First
person.
person. Good.
Back to its OGs. First
Yeah.
person, destructive environment, remake the first, second, and third games as a trilogy.
Okay. Okay. It's a
Before
remake.
it got into the third person
Yeah.
open world, go back to its roots of first person. And I reckon there's a market for people wanting to go to quite, and again, the multiplayer,
Hmm.
great multiplayer,
You gotta
arcade
get
shooter it.
whatever Geomod 3.0 it, do the next version of that.
Yep.
The finals, which is a game that I'm obsessed with at the moment, has the best destruction in a video game I've ever played. Hands down. It's incredible. It feels like what Red Faction would have been had that series continued. It's like Bad Company and Red Faction had a baby. And it's incredible. And I think if you're gonna make a Red Faction game again, you gotta have the destruction in there. You've got to have it be
Oh, it's got to be the best demo sort of stuff there is, really. Just
totally.
make it really lean into the destruction,
Yeah,
really. Make everything that someone's going to hide behind that. Like in some games, now you go behind a cardboard box and you're safe, right? This
totally.
thing should be behind a
Everything can
reinforced
splinter,
wall.
break, fall
Yeah, you're
apart.
behind a reinforced wall thinking, I'm good. And all of a sudden, the
Mm,
thing just absolutely goes everywhere and you're dead. And you're like, where the hell did that come from? There's nowhere to hide. This sort of hit and run. And it's just utter
carnage.
carnage.
Yeah,
Standing with a railgun, just hosing the whole map and it just firing it, turning it into Swiss cheese. The carnage, I think, would be epic. I think it would be really good. So I think reboot it, revitalize, modernize. Yeah, do that, and then make the campaign what it was originally, and just make it modern day version of it. I think that's what it
I
needs.
think reboot is better than sequel for that game. I think.
Yeah, I don't think you can make a sequel now. I think you have to reboot it, and
Yeah,
then maybe if depending on how well it does,
then you
then
could.
there's DLCs and sequels
Yeah, yeah.
there. Depending, I think it would do really well if you took that
I think
and
if you made if you put in like a simple arena multiplayer mode,
yep.
just a team deathmatch style thing that could very easily then have like DLC maps
Yeah, just add
down the
more
line.
maps and skins and just all the silly stuff that like modern
Yeah.
kids like now. I've got to spend $3.99 on this, tiny little sticker on the side of my gun that only I see. I'm going to spend 70 quid on this skin on this thing, and it's
Mhm.
like it's more than a game. Why would you
Yeah.
want that stupid
Yeah.
skin? What does that do for you? Don't own it. It's just pixels on a screen. Anyway, it but again, just make it very simple. Put some of that, sprinkle a little bit of that nonsense in there for the moderners, but it'll be mostly millennials playing it. Let's be honest.
Yeah, because I think that series does have a sort of a legacy that a lot of people want to tap into because they've such fond memories of playing the original too. I think,
Yeah, yeah. It's got that sort of noughties sort of arena stuff, that Quake,
Mm,
Red
good
Faction,
reference.
Unreal Tournament sort of style shooters.
Yes,
It's
totally.
just you and your mates would gather around a screen and just blow
And
the
it's
crap
simple,
out of
like
everything.
Quake, like Unreal. It was just simple arena shooters, and that's
Yeah,
great.
nothing spectacular, but good,
I
right?
think we've addressed that a lot today in this episode where we've talked about
Yeah,
various games where actually sometimes you don't need to do some sort of fundamental, massive left field turn. Playing it simple sometimes is the better approach. Just deliver the thing that people love about Mass Effect. They love the story and the characters. Focus on those two things. The
yeah,
gameplay is almost incidental. Mario Kart, do something new, but it's still fundamentally racing,
yes.
at its core, right? And I think you've said that,
And
very
just
similar
keeping
with
it
Red Faction.
silly, just keeping it silly. Just the title, we're pushing the button and transforming. Like
Yeah.
it's just a silly little game that like 7, 8, 9 year old.
Know the identity of the series that you're making either a sequel or reboot for. Like you just play to its strengths. Doesn't always have to be some massive
Just
reinvention.
just keep the shareholders out of it. So if they're like want an up, what's the update? None of your business.
Yeah.
None of your goddamn business. I've
Yeah,
got
mind your business.
you've given me the infinite amount of money. I'm gonna go away and make this now.
Hmm.
Because the second you get involved, it's all gonna go wrong, basically.
It's true.
You're gonna be like,
Very
oh,
true.
make more DLC. Oh, that won't do well. It's like, oh,
Can we come up with a name for this shareholder character that you just created there? They go, oh, man,
oh,
DLC.
it'll be I just when when you visualize like a table, all the shareholders
Mm.
gathering around, it's old white men, isn't it? Grey
Just is
bearded,
everyone called Clive?
like Clive, and they're probably it depends if they're American or English, right? Or if they're
Mm.
like there's just going to be some like utter poshos, some American exec dickwads. Do you know what I mean? Like the just the people that are so out of
Yeah.
touch. They're actually zooming. They're actually on Zoom from their yacht in the Caribbean. And they're like, oh, so what's this Mass Effect then? Is this some sort of uh of some I don't know. What is it? Explain it to me. It's a game.
Yeah,
Oh,
perfect.
wow. Oh, yeah. $399. There we go. Done. Make it for
Oh,
that.
I
Let's
like
go.
it. He's gone a little bit servant. That's really great.
Oh, it's just fucking American. It's yeah. Do you know? Just keep them away from it. That's why you just need anything that does well now is it seems to be the stuff where the corporates are least involved with.
Yeah, it's not been made by committee.
It's not been made by, oh, we got to make sure we get woke requirements in there, right? Which I'm not anti-woke or anything like that, but don't let that drive the substance. Find a way to put it in there so that it
Yeah, I
works,
think
right?
my take on that has always been like, just put it in there. You don't have to acknowledge it or make
Just
it some huge
blend it
thing.
in naturally.
Just
Just go,
make the
oh,
game you
let's
want to
make
make.
a character in a
Yeah.
wheelchair. Done. Right, that character there is actually
Totally, but it doesn't
this.
have to be a big statement. I think just
Yeah.
put the things in you want to put in, and great, then
Yeah,
that's all
just
good.
do that. Make a good. Let's make sure that that there's a good strong
Well,
female,
actually,
good independent female character there. Let's not make a big deal. She is what she is. She's a great female. Don't
totally.
just suddenly go look at her, isn't she? Like no, just do it
Well,
naturally.
you said
Do
it
it
best
right.
earlier. You said it best earlier, which is just fundamentally boil it down to what the game is and just make a good game. Like
Yeah,
that's all that matters. Not its monetization, not its release model. Just focus on the core content. And we look at the series we've talked about today. The fundamental thing with each of those is you just go back to basics. What is the thing that makes that game special? Double down on that. That's our approach. And we've obviously shared our specific ideas and wacky approaches, but fundamentally, it always gets down to what is going to make the thing that's the most fun for people.
yeah. Just make a good game.
Totally. And just like that, we've made another great podcast. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for tuning in to the latest episode of Burly and a Teet. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Burly Bird Media. We're on all of the things, and you can find us with the same handle at Burly Bird Media. Burly, thank you once again, as always, for jumping on to our latest episode, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
We're not monitoring you.